everybody. Good evening, good evening again. Just want to welcome you guys back to the Conversation 9-8 for another episode, another week. I'm truly happy and glad just to be back and be able to be on here and grateful for another opportunity to be before you. Just thankful, man. I really do appreciate the support for everybody, man. It means a lot. And, you know, we'll just continue to go. So make sure you share this. Let people know that you're here in the building, and just look forward to hearing from everybody. But we're gonna have a good topic tonight. I think one that's pretty relevant to a lot of people, and I think it's gonna be good. I mean, again, I'm just happy again for another episode, 151 episodes, and truly excited about the continued conversations and the continued support. It means a lot. But again, man, if you this is an interactive show, so let me know where you're tuning in from. Feel free to jump in and be a part of it as we go on with tonight. But we won't be before you long. But I think tonight episode is one is good. I just try to be diverse with the topics and talk about relevant topics, things that people genuinely go through. And with that being said, we're gonna get right on with it, man. But thank you. Shout out to all the people, man, that's enjoying themselves. First day of fall right now, and definitely having that fall weather up here where I'm at up in northern New York. But again, man, feel free throughout the conversation to chime in, and looking forward to have the conversation with you. But tonight we're going to start off with stop normalizing dysfunction, trying to justify your fears of addressing your dysfunction. And I was thinking about that. Many of us, we like to normalize dysfunction as a coping mechanism to get through or deal with it. And by making it a coping mechanism, we try to normalize that and we end up trying to wear it like a badge of honor as a way of avoiding it or not dealing with it. And the sad thing is, that's really you're being imprisoned by fear because you're afraid to address, face, or deal with your dysfunction. And that's not a healthy way to live. That's not a healthy way to survive. That's not a healthy way to go into relationships, because that becomes a burden. It becomes a burden because you begin to want others to cater to your fear, but really that's your responsibility to deal with it and address it. It's your responsibility. I mean, that's just what it is. And the other thing is you have to look at is, excuse me, just because you're afraid to face your have a fear of facing your dysfunction, that's not somebody else's responsibility to face it. So your inability or your fear and your attempt to normalize your dysfunction and trying to wear it as a badge of honor, right? What we end up doing is we end up trying to pass that on to other people that connected to us. And then we get upset at those people because when those people challenge us to face it and deal with it and address those issues, we begin to feel like, that they did something to us, or they're attacking us, or they're not on our team because they refuse to cater to the dysfunction that you want them to. And that's not their responsibility. That's 100% yours, right? And a lot of times we push people out of our lives that are there to help us get over those things. We push them out of our lives because of the fact that we are so prideful or so full of fear that we are afraid to address our own dysfunctions. We are afraid to do that. And that's just what it is. I mean, that's just a fact of what it is. And that's not a healthy thing to be. That's not a healthy place to be, right? And this is, I want people to understand this, right? All right. And that's a conversation, but I think many of us don't like to have. But one of the ways of when I talk about dysfunctions and have a dysfunction, right? We all have things that we have to deal with or that we have to overcome, right? We all have things. And I'm not talking, you can come from a real good background and still have certain things that are not good for you or healthy for you, right? Because nobody is perfect. No family is perfect. Nobody background is perfect. We all have those things that we have to overcome, right? But the thing is, it becomes a problem when we try to wear those things like it's a badge of honor. You know what I'm saying? And we try to just like, I'm this, that, and the third, and we try to overcome certain things with a false narrative, with a false sense of confidence, instead of just dealing with it and taking the time to deal with it. Because the reality is, a lot of the stuff that we consider dysfunctional, right, and dysfunction in our lives, a lot of those things can easily be overcome if we have the courage to face our fears and just simply address them. Just simply address them, right? Simply address them, right? And then this is the thing, right? We don't even realize, uh, many of us don't even realize just how overbearing we are when we try to mask our dysfunctions by compensating for them. And what I mean by that is, many of us, we'll try to compensate for our dysfunctions by creating this false narrative or this false sense of control in our lives, and these control mechanisms as a way of protecting ourselves from. And what we're really doing is protecting ourselves because we're afraid to face it. We come from a space to where we may have come from a background to where we had instability. So we try to build all of these things in our life that, oh, I'm never going to deal with that again. Instead of facing the fact that, hey, I was hurt from the instability, which caused me to think or view the world in a certain way. Now you get the courage to go back and deal with it. Now you can start peeling those things back, and you're not spending your life wasting time, energy, and effort trying to protect yourself from your former hurt. Because that's what a lot of us do. A lot of us do that, and we don't even realize. A lot of us don't even realize it. I mean, I'm dead serious. Many of us don't even realize how much we waste time, energy, and effort trying to protect ourselves from our former hurt, which in turn, because we're hurt and we was afraid to address it and deal with it, now what we end up doing is we'll develop dysfunctional ways to cope with the hurt that we had from before. And we expect other people that connect with us or come into our lives to cater to that or to change to that, or to adopt those same ways, just so we can feel comfortable, because we are afraid to address the very thing that caused us to operate in a dysfunctional way, right? And it may be just that can come from a lot of things, and that can come from the relationships or the disappointments from relationships. You see what I'm saying? That can come from letdowns. They can come from a number of things. But the reality is this, right? Just because those things happen, right? Either you're going to have the courage to deal with it, or you're going to continue to run from it. You will continue to run from it for the rest of your life. And many people don't even realize that they run folks away. People run good people away in their lives that come into their lives. God send good people into your lives to help you overcome those things. But because we don't want to address or deal with something that causing us to be dysfunctional, right? We just try to use it as a coping mechanism to run away from those things, and we end up pushing those people out of our lives. And many people would not admit to a lot of people, but they run good people out of their lives, all because they was afraid to address and deal with themselves, right? Deal with their past, deal with their whys, deal with the so what's or what came from their past, right? And then when they get somebody else that come with them, that God has connected you with them because they may have been whole in that area, come from a functional area, that same area, you eventually will look at them as if they are the problem, because their very presence are forcing you to deal with something you've been running away from. Their very presence will force you to deal with something that you have been running away from. Right? And the sad truth is, many of us, we like to normalize things that are dysfunctional as a way of wearing it as a badge of honor, because we are too afraid to address it or deal with it ourselves. That's what we do. We do that. Many of us do that. Many of us, we try to wear a badge of honor. I'm just strong. And no, you really hurt, and you're protecting people from getting close to you because you don't want to bear that hurt from somebody getting close to you. You don't want to feel like you are being exposed or vulnerable. So that's why you try to play all hard, and that's why you put so much effort at being tough. That's why you just rah. But you're tired on the inside. And at night, you put this front on to the world, but at night, you're really crying. You're tired. But you feel like you got to keep going on because you don't want to let nobody in. That's because you're trying to hide. You're afraid to address your own dysfunctions. And many people live life like that day to day and go to their grave in that fear. They go to their grave in that fear. And that's a sad thing. That really is a sad thing. And I promise you, that's a sad thing. That's not a healthy space to be in. That right there is not a healthy space to be in. And we have to work towards it is imperative for us to work towards a space to where we can learn not be imprisoned by a dysfunction, not be imprisoned by a dysfunction, because many of us are. Many of us are imprisoned by a dysfunction just because we allow that fear of facing it. You know, you were hurt because your dad one day. You were hurt because your mom left. You were hurt because you felt like the black sheep. You were hurt because you may not have known who your mom is or who your dad is. You were hurt by those things. So now you develop you start normalizing that dysfunctions in a way to justify the fact that, oh, that's just who I am. But really, you're masking, oh, that's just who I am. What that is masking is, oh, I'm afraid to address the very thing that caused me to operate in dysfunction. That's what happens. That's what many of us do. And we do that and we live through life that way, right? And we wondering why I can't have stability in relationships. We wonder why things don't always work out for me. We wonder why I go from this place to this place, right? And you put forth a lot of energy, but you never seem to find that peace that you're searching for. It's all because you are afraid to address your dysfunction. You're afraid to address your dysfunction. And this is the thing. This is the thing, right? Dysfunction is a part of life. And what I mean by that is you have those things, like, because we're not perfect. There are going to be some things. Nobody is perfect. Somebody's going to have, everybody got baggage. Everybody got luggage. Everybody got things. People got insecurities. People got things that's going on in their life. Everybody has it. Nobody, I don't care how they present it. I don't care how much faith they try to put forth. People have things that they have to manage. That is a 100% fact. Well, with knowing that, right? Well, why do we act like we don't have things that are bothering us? Why do we act like we don't have things that we need to overcome, right? And I would tell you, when we get to a place where we can embrace it, like seriously embrace, hey, you know what? I'm not going to normalize this. This is not normal. I want to overcome this. So I'm going to seek to get to a place to where I have the courage to address the very thing that is causing or have caused my dysfunction. I want to address it because I don't want to continue to live life with that having control over me. But sadly, that is true. You know, I mean, that is the truth. But sadly, many of us choose to allow and we forego the abundance, the experience of an abundant life, because we forfeit our power on our lives because we allow the fear of the very thing that may have caused a pain to us in our past or a traumatic experience in our past to take over that, and it controls us to the space to a point to where we don't even realize it, that we have normalized it, and we just say, you know what, that's just it. You know, it's like many of us been convinced that, hey, you have to deal with this symptom that you just have to deal with, and I just accept it and deal with it in life. But that's part of my whole life. But reality is, you don't have to carry that your whole life. You don't have to carry that. There's some things you can be totally healed from. But many of us are afraid to be healed because we feel like the work to be healed is too much. But we don't even realize that that same thing is so much easier than dealing with managing those symptoms for the rest of our lives. Because many of us, we choose to just manage those symptoms instead of getting to the root cause and be made whole, and just simply be made whole. It used to always stand out to me, but I would tell you, I've always been intrigued by in the Bible when it says, when Jesus asked many times in the Bible, will thou be made whole? Will you be made whole? And I was like, you know, okay, understanding it from that perspective, but like, why would he ask that question? And I realized that Many of those people, they had begun to normalize. They normalize their space. They normalize their dysfunction. They normalize their illness. They normalize their current state because they begin to identify it, because many of them were afraid to address their dysfunctions. And I love the fact that when it was time for them to be healed, it was just a simple conversation, and it said, "Go and be made whole." Right? And you just had to walk in it. You had to change the way that you think. And when we walk in it, what we realize is there's freedom when we face the very thing we've been afraid of. There's freedom. And that's what that is talking about. Will you be made whole? Okay, you have to make the decision. You have to choose. You have to make the conscious decision to choose to overcome the very thing that which you have imprisoned yourself on because you was afraid to face it. And the thing, one of the greatest thing about it is when we start facing these things and start dealing with it, we'll start to realize that it wasn't as bad as we thought it was in the first place. We start to realize that. And that's a good thing. So remember, man, stop normalizing dysfunction, trying to justify your fear of addressing your dysfunction. Normalize it. It's not going to take away the responsibility for you to address your own dysfunction. I mean, that's the truth. And we may not like it, but normalizing your dysfunction will not take away the responsibility, your responsibility for addressing your own dysfunction or your responsibility for doing the work to overcome or address and deal with the very thing that may have caused the dysfunction to come in place in the first place. It's not going to justify it. It's not a badge of honor. You're not going to get sympathy for it because many of us, we like to normalize it in a way, in a sense, to feel like we justify this to give excuses to stay where we at. No, you still going to have to deal with the consequences of not addressing it. You still will have to deal with that for life. So you might as well just go ahead on and address it. And the thing about it is, it's not as hard as you've seen when you just say, I'm going to start dealing with it. I'm going to start addressing the very thing that I had given power over me. I'm going to take my power back. I'm going to take it back. So you guys, man, I appreciate you guys rocking with me tonight. Again, I told you it wasn't going to be long, man. I thank you so much. It means a lot every week for you guys dropping in. Make sure you share this. Make sure you go and you follow me on all social media platforms here at The Conversation 98 on YouTube, The Conversation 98 on Instagram, at 98 Conversation on X or Twitter, whatever it is right now. The Conversation 98 here on here, and at The Conversation _98 on TikTok. You guys have a great and wonderful weekend. I appreciate you guys. Love you guys much. God bless.